Hello guys, welcome to the part 2 of my video series in which I'm covering the fundamentals and the guidelines and pointers of getting a job at companies like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Facebook and Apple, which are considered as the biggest companies and the top-notch companies in the technology domain. In the last slide we discussed about advantages of getting your resume stamped by the tech biggies, which will basically prove that you are at least this much good of a software developer, owing to the difficulty of the hiring process in these organizations. In this video, I would like to start by basically giving you some pointers in which how you can get yourself interviewed with these big companies. There is a concept of campus placement. If you are in a good college, if you are in an Ivy League college, or in India as we call them, if you are in like one of the IITs or top-notch tier one colleges, then you will be having a very strong campus placement cell, which is basically placement and training office, which will be headed by placement and training officer. So you can actually essentially get interviewed through the campus placement department. So if you don't know about what campus placements are, you can actually go to YouTube or Google and search about how campus placement works. And the other ways in which you can basically get into these companies are referrals, job fairs, making good contacts through LinkedIn, and then applying through in LinkedIn, being active on social media. You can actually follow the handle of these companies on various social media pages like Facebook and Twitters and LinkedIn. Then it is always advisable to participate in hackathons and competitive programmings, and a lot of teams of these companies hire directly from these kind of these websites of hackathons as well as competitive programming websites. So if you are in like top 100 coders of their competitive programming, they will definitely the company HRs and the company recruiters will chase you rather than you going after them. And then there is another way in which you can basically get yourself hired is by making your network very strong. And one of the good ways of making your network strong is attending the different meetups that happen. So in these meetups, a lot of peers like you, a lot of other developers that are working in these top notch companies will be attending. So it is always a good practice to basically have friendship with them. And whenever you are going for a hiring event, you should also do networking and make contacts with other candidates who are basically available there, and they are also giving interviews. So what essentially would happen is that as and when there will be openings in their organizations, you can actually apply with the help of their referrals. And at the same time, whenever there is an opening in your organization, you can reciprocate their favors by referring them in your organization. That way you will also end up getting good referral bonus. And at the same time, it is always good to have allies in your company, because you never know when times are not good. The common websites the job portals that you should be looking at are Naukri.com, Monster.com, Shine.com, Hiris.com in India. And you can similarly Google search for your specific country, whichever is the dominant job portal for your country. And one trick there is to keep updating your resume every single day. So even if you're not updating your resume, you should keep uploading your resume every single day on these portals. And the main advantage that you get is that these portals work a lot like Facebook, which basically means that the person who has updated most recently, their feed is on the top. And whenever a recruiter or a hiring manager logs in, he can actually see see your entry on the top. So you are more likely to have a better visibility than other candidates if you update regularly. So I did a research, and then I found out that if you update your resume at around 10 a.m. every day, you have the highest probability of getting called for these kind of interviews. You should be somewhat active on social media. And there are a lot of tests that you can give in India, which are basically India specific, which can actually help you in getting yourself interviewed at these organizations. Some of those tests are like e-litmus, amcat, freshers world, etc. And you should also, besides attending the meetups, you should also go to the tech conference, and keep enlarging your circle. Today in the age of things like WhatsApp Messenger, and there are so many other messengers like Hike Messenger and Telegram. You should probably take initiative and create groups and add your peers to the group. And as and when there are opportunities, you yourself should update it in those groups, and you should encourage your friends to update as well. So these were the so yeah, so what you essentially need to do is that you should get an interview scheduled somehow, and these are the few tips and tricks on how you can get those interviews scheduled. So these are actually so this is actually easy to say, but what I'm essentially trying to say that this is simple, but actually it is difficult to execute. It is hard to execute, and it takes patience as well as persistence, and you have to do the same process every day to enhance your probability of getting interviewed. And then I'll talk about a few FAQs regarding the interview schedule, as well as a few tips and tricks on things like how good your resume should be and how much should be the GPA, a couple of touch points for senior and junior level. And then there is a game known as the interview game that I have made after doing a lot of research and development, and doing a lot of analysis and looking at a lot of numbers and data. And by playing this game, you will actually enhance your probability of getting selected in the interviews. So a good resume must contain the keywords of the technology that you work on. And as I said, that a lot of these biggies consider more on the fundamentals of computer science rather than specific technologies. So terms like data structures, algorithms, object oriented concepts, problem solving, software design pattern, high level design, low level design must be there in your resume. These are also the attributes that any company look at in the potential candidate, and every single line in your resume should be saying that why you should be hired. Performance and quantitative numbers speak a lot. So if you are looking to if you're looking to be hired, you should definitely provide the links to your previous work, the previous good work that you have done, your contributions to open source the open source community will play a major role in getting in getting your resume on top, and also helping you progress through initial rounds of interview. So if you are basically looking to be hired as an Android developer, then giving the Play Store link on your resume will definitely help. Similarly, if you are looking to be hired as an iOS developer, giving the App Store link of your work will help. Similarly, if you're being if you're basically looking forward to be hired as a UI developer, then giving the website which you have basically designed and developed will help. If you want to be hired as a web developer or backend developer, then the giving the link to the web service or the web API that you have developed will play a really crucial role. And you should always consider giving the links to your code base like GitHub and stuff. These things come really crucial. At the same time, I would talk a little bit about my personal experience. So I had a friend in my college who was a real geek, a wizard in all true sense, and cracking tough interviews for him was like a cakewalk. And I believe he was somewhat gifted by God in this specific area. So he just had to sit in the interview and he would crack it. However, for me, cracking interviews was a little bit difficult, and my selection rate was like kind of 10%. But the good thing here is that his resume looks exactly like my resume, which basically means that we don't need to highlight any failure stories in my resume. I only need to highlight the success stories, right? And this story was of 5 years back, and right now I am in way better situation financially and work wise than him, which basically means to say is that even though if you are not God gifted, still you can optimize your chances of being interviewed and performing really good in these interviews with real hard work and following the tips and tricks that I'm giving as a part of this video. Okay, so now I'll come to the next part, that how much does GPA matter? So to be very honest, the GPA doesn't matter too much as long as you are confident of cracking the interview. Sometimes on campus interviews are short of panel, and hence they decide a cutoff just to shortlist the number of people. So big, since the availability of panel is crucial for them. And and if it is not that kind of a situation and you are looking off campus, or if you're looking to be hired as experienced candidate, your GPA wouldn't matter much. Just maintain a minimum of 50% of CGPA, and that should be enough. Don't keep any standing backlogs. And sometimes candidates who don't even have an engineering degree are now hired, basically because they can prove in the interviews their metal, and that they can be as good as a programmer than anybody else, and hence they are hired as the at the same pay package and the job grade as the other people from Ivy League colleges. And I would also like to emphasize about practicing coding as much as possible. So you should definitely practice as much, because you should, because it is ultimately the practice that will ultimately help you. Here I would like to mention that if you are entry level person, then the emphasis on data structures and algorithms and low level design would be there, wherein 70% of the weightage will be for data structures and algorithms and 30% for low level design. If you're a little bit higher level, then you are expected to be an expert in data structures, algorithms, and programming, and you are also expected to be an expert in low level and high level design. So as and when you increase in seniority, the design and the maintainability of the code and the kind of leadership roles, in the long term sustainability of the company, the technical architecture of the company will also come in handy. So you should definitely touch upon these points. And you should basically learn a few good algorithms. What you should basically do is that once you learn any algorithm or data structure, you should definitely implement it on the system to be confident that whatever you are learning or doing is correct, and the results that you are expecting, you are actually getting by running it on the system. However, I would also like to emphasize that when you are giving the interview, nobody will ask you, or for the most part nobody will ask you to run the questions on the system. Rather, they will give you either a pen and a paper or a whiteboard, and you will have to solve answers there. So you should definitely be in a practice to solve questions impromptu on on whiteboard or on a piece of paper. And speaking of running the code on machine, it is a good practice to basically to so let's say if you have come up with a solution to a problem and then you are trying to execute on a machine but it is getting stuck somewhere, then on the machine you should basically you should try to see and debug where you are going wrong. And why I'm saying this is because I want to emphasize on the importance of using a good debugger. So if you're going wrong somewhere, you should actually put breakpoints in your program just to find out where your program didn't is not working. And these days with the advanced IDE, the debugger comes as an inbuilt part of these IDEs, where and you can see you can see the part of the code which is not running properly. So yeah, this will help you in understanding that where the things are going wrong. And so what I'll do is that I will talk about the interview game in the next slide. So as you could have felt that the second video was a little bit better, a little bit more complicated than the first video, and we are slowly building up. Maybe I'll have to do 3 to 4 more videos, and after that we will be having all the pointers in the right direction as to how to approach the interview at the big 5 companies in the tech domain. And till then, thank you for bearing with me, and thank you for bearing all the grammatical mistake that I make, and also thank you for bearing a little bit of audio disturbances that was happening while I was recording this video. And then good luck, and I hope you learned something from this video.